everyone! Come back with me at Taekook Velvet, a home for you lovers of Taekook's iconic dynamics. Don't forget to prepare your snacks, because today we will discuss something really fun. Stay tuned! That night Incheon International Airport was not just an ordinary arrival gate, but a stage for a moment that may be recorded in the history of the South Korean entertainment industry forever. Thousands of pairs of eyes, from loyal fans to news-hungry media camera lenses, have waited for hours just to catch a glimpse of the two biggest global icons today. The situation initially seemed to be under control with tight security barricades and regular hysterical screams, but the atmosphere suddenly turned into a gripping silence as the automatic arrival door opened slowly. There stood two figures whose presence was always able to shake the world, but this time there was something different from the way they stepped out towards the crowd. V and Jungkook did not walk at the distance they usually show in front of the public, but instead walked hand in hand with shoulders that occasionally touched, as if there was a wordless conversation going on between them. The highlight of the camera's flash began to blindly, illuminating every inch of their facial expressions that looked tired but kept an unusual calm. The Korean media, which is usually very aggressive in asking questions, suddenly fell silent when they saw how Jungkook protectively put his hand behind V's back, guiding him through the sea of people. Their steps are not in a hurry, they instead give space for the world to witness a closeness that has only been a speculation behind the glass screen. In the midst of the frenzy of the sound of the camera shutter, an unexpected incident occurred right in front of the main exit gate, an action that made the heartbeat of anyone who saw it seem to stop for a moment. V stopped walking, turned to Jungkook, and in a matter of seconds that felt like eternity, a brave action was done without the slightest hesitation. Not just a warm hug or a pat on the shoulder as a sign of friendship, but a short but emphatic kiss that landed right in the area that made everyone there take a deep breath. It was a silent statement, an action that breaks down the boundaries between personal life and public image that they have been guarding very closely. Journalists who are usually fighting for the best position to take photos suddenly sculpted, as if their fingers were paralyzed to press the camera button because of the overwhelming surprise. There were no provocative shouts from the media, no sharp questions that were usually thrown, there was only a collective silence filled with disbelief. This brave action seems to answer thousands of theories and analyses that have been scattered on the internet for years, but in a much more elegant and irrefutable way. They didn't need a press conference or a long text upload on social media to explain what was going on between them that night. In the eyes of the fans present, that moment was not only about romance, but about the courage of two humans who decided to stop hiding behind the shadows of industry expectations. There was a sense of horror that crept through the crowd, where tears began to fall from several faces who felt proud to see their idols finally choose to be themselves. Jungkook seemed to smile slightly, a smile full of pride and protection, while V looked at him with a twinkle in his eyes that could not be lied to by any camera lens. They seemed to create their own air bubbles in the midst of a storm of popularity that always surrounds their daily lives. The silence of the Korean media that night was an unexpected form of tribute to such a pure honesty, which rarely happens on an entertainment stage full of falsehoods. They realized that what they have just seen is not just content to increase the rating, but a very deep human moment. Every movement of their bodies after the incident showed perfect synchronization, as if the great weight they had been carrying had been lifted completely from their shoulders. They continued their steps towards the shuttle vehicle with their heads held high, leaving the airport, which was now filled with whispers of amazement and speculation that began to heat up. Amateur videos taken by fans began to spread like fire on social media, but the narrative that was built was no longer about scandal, but about the beauty of a loyalty. The world seems to be forced to see the other side of the K-pop industry, where love and identity are starting to find their space to breathe freely. Many wonder whether this is the end of a long wait or the beginning of a new era for their future career journey. However, looking at the way they look at each other, it is clear that they no longer care about what the newspaper will write tomorrow morning. The psychology behind this action shows a very high level of confidence, where they have reached a point where personal happiness is much more valuable than validation from outside parties. This is a very crucial turning point, especially for idols who are often trapped in strict rules regarding romantic relationships. The international media also began to give the spotlight, calling this incident in Incheon as one of the most iconic moments in the history of modern pop culture in 2026. Their name topped the search list around the world, creating a wave of discussion involving various circles, from industry observers to sociologists. But behind all that global noise, there is a simpler message that wants to be conveyed, that everyone has the right to love and be loved without fear, even under the spotlight of the airport. V and Jungkook have proven that the power of honesty is far greater than the fear of criticism or rejection. Along with the car that took them away from the crowd, Incheon Airport slowly returned to its normal rhythm, but the atmosphere there will never be the same again. The people who were eyewitnesses that night brought home a story that will never be forgotten for the rest of their lives. An in-depth analysis of the moments before the incident shows how mature this plan may not be planned, but born from a sincere emotional impulse. There was no doubt in Jungkook's gaze, and there was no fear in V's gesture as they decided to share that personal moment with the world. This is a victory for those who always support the freedom of expression of idols, and a challenge for the industry to be more open and inclusive in the future. The impact of this action is predicted to change the way big agencies handle the privacy and relationships of their big artists. The silence of the Korean media that night eventually broke into thousands of analysis articles, but the point remained the same, that love has its own way to find its way home. And that night, the way home passed through the airport arrival gate, in front of thousands of eyewitnesses who saw a miracle happening in front of their own eyes. Many will continue to debate the motive behind this action, but for those who know their long journey, this moment is the culmination of all the struggles they have gone through. The silence at the airport at that time was proof that the truth was sometimes so powerful that even words could no longer explain it. We may see many changes in the next few days regarding their contracts, advertisements, or schedules, but one thing is certain is that their position in the hearts of the fans is increasingly unshakable. They are no longer just members of a music group, but a symbol of courage for the new generation that longs for authenticity. This moment at Incheon Airport will always be remembered as the airport kiss that changed everything, a sign that love knows no place in time to show its existence. And the world finally learned to be silent for a moment and appreciate the sincerity that was shown so boldly. Thank you for accompanying this narrative journey to the end, and let's wait for how history will write the next chapter of this amazing story. Stay with us for a deeper analysis and the latest updates regarding news developments that continue to shake the global entertainment world. Thousands of pairs of eyes, from loyal fans to news-hungry media camera lenses, have waited for hours just to catch a glimpse of the two biggest global icons today. The situation initially seemed to be under control with tight security barricades and regular hysterical screams, but the atmosphere suddenly turned into a gripping silence as the automatic arrival door opened slowly. There stood two figures whose presence was always able to shake the world, but this time there was something different from the way they stepped out towards the crowd. V and Jungkook did not walk at the distance they usually show in front of the public, but instead walked hand in hand with shoulders that occasionally touched, as if there was a wordless conversation going on between them. The highlight of the camera's flash began to blindly, illuminating every inch of their facial expressions that looked tired but kept an unusual calm. The Korean media, which is usually very aggressive in asking questions, suddenly fell silent when they saw how Jungkook protectively put his hand behind V's back, guiding him through the sea of people. Their steps are not in a hurry, they instead give space for the world to witness a closeness that has only been a speculation behind the glass screen. In the midst of the frenzy of the sound of the camera shutter, an unexpected incident occurred right in front of the main exit gate, an action that made the heartbeat of anyone who saw it seem to stop for a moment. V stopped walking, turned to Jungkook, and in a matter of seconds that felt like eternity, a brave action was done without the slightest hesitation. Not just a warm hug or a pat on the shoulder as a sign of friendship, but a short but emphatic kiss that landed right in the area that made everyone there take a deep breath. It was a silent statement, an action that breaks down the boundaries between personal life and public image that they have been guarding very closely. Journalists who are usually fighting for the best position to take photos suddenly sculpted, as if their fingers were paralyzed to press the camera button because of the overwhelming surprise. There were no provocative shouts from the media, no sharp questions that were usually thrown, there was only a collective silence filled with disbelief. This brave action seems to answer thousands of theories and analyses that have been scattered on the internet for years, but in a much more elegant and irrefutable way. They didn't need a press conference or a long text upload on social media to explain what was going on between them that night. In the eyes of the fans present, that moment was not only about romance, but about the courage of two humans who decided to stop hiding behind the shadows of industry expectations. There was a sense of horror that crept through the crowd, where tears began to fall from several faces who felt proud to see their idols finally choose to be themselves. Jungkook seemed to smile slightly, a smile full of pride and protection, while V looked at him with a twinkle in his eyes that could not be lied to by any camera lens. They seemed to create their own air bubbles in the midst of a storm of popularity that always surrounds their daily lives. The silence of the Korean media that night was an unexpected form of tribute to such a pure honesty, which rarely happens on an entertainment stage full of falsehoods. They realized that what they have just seen is not just content to increase the rating, but a very deep human moment. Every movement of their bodies after the incident showed perfect synchronization, as if the great weight they had been carrying had been lifted completely from their shoulders. They continued their steps towards the shuttle vehicle with their heads held high, leaving the airport, which was now filled with whispers of amazement and speculation that began to heat up. Amateur videos taken by fans began to spread like fire on social media, but the narrative that was built was no longer about scandal, but about the beauty of a loyalty. The world seems to be forced to see the other side of the K-pop industry, where love and identity are starting to find their space to breathe freely. Many wonder whether this is the end of a long wait or the beginning of a new era for their future career journey. However, looking at the way they look at each other, it is clear that they no longer care about what the newspaper will write tomorrow morning. The psychology behind this action shows a very high level of confidence, where they have reached a point where personal happiness is much more valuable than validation from outside parties. This is a very crucial turning point, especially for idols who are often trapped in strict rules regarding romantic relationships. The international media also began to give the spotlight, calling this incident in Incheon as one of the most iconic moments in the history of modern pop culture in 2026. Their name topped the search list around the world, creating a wave of discussion involving various circles, from industry observers to sociologists. But behind all that global noise, there is a simpler message that wants to be conveyed, that everyone has the right to love and be loved without fear, even under the spotlight of the airport. V and Jungkook have proven that the power of honesty is far greater than the fear of criticism or rejection. Along with the car that took them away from the crowd, Incheon Airport slowly returned to its normal rhythm, but the atmosphere there will never be the same again. The people who were eyewitnesses that night brought home a story that will never be forgotten for the rest of their lives. An in-depth analysis of the moments before the incident shows how mature this plan may not be planned, but born from a sincere emotional impulse. There was no doubt in Jungkook's gaze, and there was no fear in V's gesture as they decided to share that personal moment with the world. This is a victory for those who always support the freedom of expression of idols, and a challenge for the industry to be more open and inclusive in the future. The impact of this action is predicted to change the way big agencies handle the privacy and relationships of their big artists. The silence of the Korean media that night eventually broke into thousands of analysis articles, but the point remained the same, that love has its own way to find its way home. And that night, the way home passed through the airport arrival gate, in front of thousands of eyewitnesses who saw a miracle happening in front of their own eyes. Many will continue to debate the motive behind this action, but for those who know their long journey, this moment is the culmination of all the struggles they have gone through. The silence at the airport at that time was proof that the truth was sometimes so powerful that even words could no longer explain it. We may see many changes in the next few days regarding their contracts, advertisements, or schedules, but one thing is certain is that their position in the hearts of the fans is increasingly unshakable. They are no longer just members of a music group, but a symbol of courage for the new generation that longs for authenticity. This moment at Incheon Airport will always be remembered as the airport kiss that changed everything, a sign that love knows no place in time to show its existence. And the world finally learned to be silent for a moment and appreciate the sincerity that was shown so boldly. Thank you for accompanying this narrative journey to the end, and let's wait for how history will write the next chapter of this amazing story. Stay with us for a deeper analysis and the latest updates regarding news developments that continue to shake the global entertainment world.